Hey everybody, Ed Homewood, Old Guy Hi-Fi channel. Hope everyone's doing well today. Well, here it is, finally, my review of the LAiV GaNM monoblock amplifiers. So do me a favor, sit back, relax, and we'll get going with this video. So what are the LAiV Harmony GaNM mono amps? Well, they are $4,500 for the pair. It is a new technology GaN FET Class D amplifier. It is LAiV's first amplifier product. I'll put some specs up here, but the basics are 200 watts into 8 ohms, 400 watts into 4 ohms. Very good signal noise ratio, THD, frequency response, all of that wonderful stuff if it matters to you. One of the things that I think LAiV has done better than almost anybody is a consistency of design and kind of a coherence in appearance. So if you have a LAiV Harmony DAC and you have the LAiV HP2A headphone amp and you stack them together, they're exactly the same height as these mono amplifiers, so it looks beautiful. You can also stack these mono amplifiers on each other. They've got that traditional three-legged stand, which I kind of find a pain because it's a little tippy, but you can stack them if you want to. The basics are, it is just a really well-made, very well-executed, very interesting GaN FET amplifier. We're going to talk about that because I'm going to take it over on the bench in a little bit. We're going to look at the front panel, back panel, and I'm going to open it up and dig around inside and show you as much as I can given the layout of the amplifier, but I also want to talk about the GaN technology. So why don't we do that next? Why don't we go ahead and put it on the bench and we'll go through all that stuff, and then I'll come back and tell you how I tested it, some of the music I used, and then we'll summarize my thoughts and we'll get on our way. Well, here we are looking at the front and back panels of the LAiV GaNM monoblock amps. I don't know if you can see it on screen. There's a little red LED indicating that this unit is in standby mode. I'm going to go ahead and push the power button on the top, and it'll go through its wake up sequence and default to the power meter. Now, you can access the menuing system, and I'll show you that in just a second, but you have some choices here. You can show the power meter. You can have it just display the LAiV logo just by pushing the power button on top. Push it again, and the display is up, but there's a little white LED there indicating the unit is actually on. If I push it again, it defaults back to the power meter setting. So now to turn the units off, you push and hold and it'll go through a countdown timer. But if you push and hold for the turn off and then let go, it brings you into the menuing system. So you can do about, reset the unit. It defaults back to the, and we're going to come here. So reset brightness, dim, off, which turns the display off, range, which then gives you the ability to pick a power range from 0 to 50, 200, 100 watts. Now, the 0 to 50 is a new one. That's a change that I suggested they make, and they did make it in a firmware upgrade, so that can be upgraded. So again, dim, turn the display off, power range, about the unit, resets, so forth. If you just let it go, it will eventually go back to the power meter, so you don't have to mess with it. Good news is, once you set it up, you don't have to mess with it very often. Now, to turn the unit off, you just push and hold, and it'll go through a countdown. You can't let go. And then boom, it goes down. There's your little red LED indicating standby. Now on the back of the unit, we've got our balanced XLR input. That's all this has, is balanced input. You could use, and I recommend the Benchmark RCA to balanced with floating pin 3 adapter cables. That will be listed in the description of the video. Really good high quality 5-way binding posts. Chassis ground should you need it. IEC power socket, 12 volt trigger in so that you can start it. Let's say you're using the HP2A as your preamp or any other with a trigger, 12 volt trigger, it'll do that. Now, this little display here indicates on the top, on the front of the unit, there's an L and an R little LED light. If you choose this, it indicates, let's say it's the right channel, you'd have the right light on. If it's the left channel, you'd have the left channel on, or put it in the middle, and neither of those lights go on. So anyway, that's looking at the front and back of the GaNM amps. Let's open one up and dig around inside. Well, here we are looking inside the GaNM amplifier, and as you can see, the lion's share of it is that large switching power supply, very ultra low noise, very high speed switching power supply. And we'll talk about that in a second. But what I wanted to do was zoom in on this section of the amplifier board so that you can see these little devices right here. Let me get the pencil going around the other way. There are 4 of those little, that's the GaN FETs, those are the actual output devices, and there's 2 per channel, so traditional push-pull. So what is the difference between GaN FET and traditional silicon MOSFET-based Class D amplifiers? Well, GaN FET transistors deliver exceptional speed, efficiency, and sonic purity, unlike their traditional silicon-based designs. GaN FET transistors switch much faster. Remember, these amplifiers operate by switching at very, very high speed. So it allows the amplifier to respond much quicker to transients and things like that. But the basic tenets are the difference between a conventional silicon-based MOSFET Class D amp and a GaN FET Class D amplifier is GaN FETs switch much faster than silicon MOSFETs, allowing for higher pulse width modulated frequency, that's the switching, greater than 400 kilohertz, excuse me, and there are a lot of really high speed ones, and we'll talk about that in a second when it comes to this. Efficiency, Class D, GaN FET based Class D amplifiers have lower switching losses, so they waste less energy as heat and require smaller heat sinks. These are actually Infineon 61008TR transistors, and they are what are called bottom side cooled GaN XP packages. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. That's why you don't see much in the way of heat sinks. It uses the actual chassis more or less. So, audio performance, faster switching and cleaner waveforms from a GaN FET based amplifier lead to better transient response, lower noise floor, and improved clarity, especially at high frequencies. Again, remember, these are switching amplifiers, and we have to filter out all of that switching noise. And it's a very important thing that the faster you can switch your GaN FETs, the higher up the filter can be, and it can be much gentler and have less or zero audible consequences in the range of frequencies we can hear. GaN FET-based amps can be smaller and more compact, again, thanks to not having to have really large heat sinks. So now let's talk about these Infineon GaN FET devices. So let's talk about these Infineon GS61008P-TR output devices. They are what are known as bottom side cooled transistors in a GaN XP package. So they have a very low junction to case thermal resistance for high power applications such as Class D audio amplifiers, which we have here. They have a very high switching frequency. Now, most Class D amplifiers we see with the TPA, Texas Instruments chips probably are switching somewhere right around 300 kilohertz to maybe 400 kilohertz. And that switching noise can be audible, and sometimes people refer to it as a Class D sound. Now, when you get into higher end products, for example, the Orchard Audio Star Crimson Ultra 500, that module has a switching speed of 800 kilohertz. And the new Orchard Audio little mono 25 amps have a 1 megahertz switching speed. And on these particular ones, the folks at LAiV would not divulge what the switching speed is because it's proprietary information. They don't want to give away their hand. But I will tell you that the Infineon chip they use can have a high switching frequency up to as much as 10 megahertz. I don't know if this is where they're doing it, but obviously has a very, very high switching speed, which makes for very gentle filter to remove all of that switching noise. So the GS61008P is an enhancement mode GaN on silicon power transistors. This allows for high current, high voltage breakdown, and high switching frequency. So the GaN systems innovates with industry-leading advancements such as patent Island technology and GaN XP packaging. So the Island technology cell layout realizes high current die and high yield. So in a very small package, they can produce a ton of power. Basically, that's what that means. And as I said, this particular Infineon device is a bottom side cooled transistor. So it's very easy to deal with from a heat standpoint and everything else. Now, what we haven't talked about, and let me switch here and get a different look at the unit. So let me reconfigure. Well, here we're going to take a little bit of a closer look. This is a metal chassis, and it's shielding, obviously, but if I peek that up, you can see some WEMA capacitors in there, some really high-quality stuff. Now, this is a 250-watt, ultra-low noise, switch mode power supply that uses Infineon silicon carbide, what's called cool-SiC MOSFETs. So the ultra-low noise power supply is meticulously engineered using the advanced NXP TEA2017 AAT controller. This smart chip integrates both PFC, which stands for power factor correction, and LLC, which stands for inductor-inductor capacitor, resonant topology, and it significantly reduces the number of external components required while enabling a cleaner, more efficient energy conversion. And that is this is an intelligent power supply, which means it is microprocessor controlled. So it integrates both what's called power factor correction, or PCF. That's a circuit that improves how efficiently the device draws power from the AC mains input, and it ensures that the voltage and current are in phase. This reduces wasted energy, and it meets regulatory standards like those for power supplies in any consumer electronics, especially the EU or the United States. Now, LLC resonant technology, that stands for inductor to inductor. It is a high efficiency DC conversion technique used in switch mode power supplies. It allows for soft switching, zero voltage or zero current switching, which reduces switching losses, and EMI, electromagnetic interference. So what does all of that gobbledygook, technical gobbledygook mean? And of course, it only appeals to me and some other nerds like me. What it is it's designed to ensure maximum efficiency and reliability. Obviously, the microprocessor is looking at the power supply and dealing with the load and the input, and it's monitoring all that. Now, it features premium components in the power supply to generate the DC voltage required. The Infineon silicon carbide cool-SiC MOSFETs, known for their high switching efficiency, low on resistance, while they're on very low resistance, and extended lifespan. Complementing these are Rubicon electronic capacitors from Japan, chosen for their excellent temperature, stability, and longevity. These are usually will last in excess of way more than 10 years. So all these components deliver a consistently stable voltage and current output, crucial for maintaining ultra-low noise and minimizing signal interference, which means this thing is super clean, and we're going to talk about that, super clean. Now, there is another chip, and I'll insert a picture of it, that's marked a D2 audio, and it's a D2-92633-LR, and it's a Renaissance, or formerly known as an Intersil. It is a digital audio processor and a Class D amplifier controller. So it's a microprocessor, sorry, I kicked the tripod. It's a microprocessor that kind of controls the amplifier section of it. So it is an integrated DSP-based sound processor with a 12-channel pulse width modulated engine for Class D output. So it's looking at the Class D signal. This is part of the filtering to get rid of that the very high frequency switching noise that Class D amplifiers generate. So it includes EQs, it includes compression. It's programmable by the engineers, by the people who make it. It includes compression, mixing, filtering. It's all configurable via a GUI that they use when programming. The pulse width modulated stage supports multiple bridging schemes and protective mechanisms, and it has a very high signal and noise ratio, and its internal sample rate, and it has very high internal sample rate conversion and noise shaping DSP. So in summary, that chip serves as a complete audio system on a chip, ideal for applications like amplifiers like this. It combines programmable DSP control. And again, it's programmable by the engineers at LAiV. It doesn't come out of a box that way. So it's programmable for DSP, multiple digital analog, I/O, built-in Class D pulse width modulation stages, all in one simple chip, which keeps this small in size and obviously easy to manufacture. So I think it's quite compelling how they've designed this amplifier. Well, anyway, let's do this. Now that I've spilled all that technical nonsense, and I'm going to get a million questions about it, and that's fine, let's button it up and let's talk about how I tested it, some of the music I use. I'll summarize my thoughts, and then we'll be done. Well, as you can see from looking inside, these things are really well constructed. There's a lot of really excellent engineering and production engineering that goes into these. And I think a lot of these GaN FET Class D amplifiers. I think we're going to see more and more of them in the high end. Currently, there's a lot of, obviously, Hypex Encore modules and Purify modules and ICE modules and a bunch of other stuff. And then out of some of the smaller, more fun-fi category stuff, they're using Infineon and Texas Instruments chip amp modules. The difference between all of those and these are, I think, switching speeds. And I talked about that briefly when we were looking inside, and I can't confirm what the switching speed is, but I guarantee, or I'm pretty confident, let me put it that way, that this is one of the highest switching speed GaN FET amps on the market, period. I also love the fact that it is really well constructed, and obviously everything LAiV does is fully balanced throughout from start to finish. And of course, this is a balanced topography in here, being mono, obviously, but also the way it's handled inside with the push-pull configurations. A lot of times in a stereo amp, you'll see a pair of output devices per channel. In this case, we've got 4 output devices per amplifier. So we've got push-pull, and I think that's really interesting, and it makes it very powerful, which is why it can do 200 into 8 ohms and 400 into 4 ohms. Now, it is 2 ohm stable, even though there's not a wattage published for that. So let's do this. Let me talk about how I tested it, some of the music I used, and we'll move on. So to test these units, I gave it a lot of really good signals. I wanted to try and find a synergy with these that I could live with and I thought would be kind of appropriate. So obviously when I first got them, I had the Harmony HP2A headphone amp preamp and of course the LAiV Harmony DAC. So I put that stack together and that was super detailed, super clean, super resolute, but a little bit harsh to my ears. Not fatiguing, but a little bit strident, I guess would be the best way to put it. Not in my wheelhouse. You guys know I'm kind of the smooth, warm guy. So I tried a couple of other things. I had the Black Ice F360, which was a very good combination. I had the Rogue RP5, which was an excellent combination. That's a fully tubed preamplifier. And I have currently the Audible Illusions Modulus M3B dual mono preamplifier in. You can't see it, it's sitting over there. And that has a separate outboard power supply and uses some really interesting Russian tubes in it. And that was a great combination. So I found the combination of tubes in these amps to really suit my sonic preference, I guess. From sources, I used the LAiV Harmony DAC, obviously. I used the Pegasus 2 DAC. I used the SPL Diamond. I used the Singzer SU2 DDC clock reclocker. I used the Matrix X Speed 3 DDC. I used the LAiV Micro DDC. I also, from an analog standpoint, I used not only my Fluence turntable, but I used the Michel Techno DAC. I used the Bellison Radiance Phono preamplifier, and I used my Audio Technica OC9 EXN moving coil cartridge. So those were the sources, again, giving this every opportunity I could. From a speaker standpoint, I'm spoiled for choice these days with speakers. So I used the Opera Callus. That was a very good combination, although not perfect combination. I think the Callus sounds better with tubes. I used the Wharfdale Diamond 12.4s, which is a baseline speaker for me, and they can rise to the occasion, believe me, and that sounded wonderful. That's a great speaker. I used and I've got them sitting right here. You guys haven't seen them yet, the CSS Crichton 3TDX Towers. What an amazing speaker. That was a fabulous combination. One of the better ones for sure. I used the Magnapan LRS Plus, which was a good combination, not perfect. I'll talk about that in the summary. I also used the Martin Logan Impression 11 ESLs, which I have these monster electrostatic panel powered subwoofer Martin Logans here. That's an amazing combination. That's an amazing speaker. $12,000 it should be. I also used the Jamie Audio Myriad M603s, which is the stand mount or floor stander, that I reviewed recently, and that's in and around the $13,000 price range. That was a very good combination with a caveat, and I'll mention that in just a second. I also have used it with the Jamie Audio i602, the Infinity i602s, which is a two-way stand mount speaker I have in right now, and that was a good combination with a caveat, and again, like the 603s. The Jamie Audio speakers are very detailed on the top end. This amplifier with the HP2A and those speakers was a little much. It was a little extra stridency. Put a good good tube front end on it, and then everything else came alive. And I'll talk about more of that when I talk about the summary, when I'm giving you my final summation thoughts. So let's do this. Let me tell you about the music I used while I was testing, and then I'll summarize my thoughts, and we'll get the heck out of here. So I listened to a lot of other music than just the two albums I'm going to talk about here today, and I listened to these a lot. I've had them for a long time, and I really dug into them to try to, figure out what they sound like. So the first album I used was this album from Steve Hackett called At the Edge of Light. Now, this is his 2019 album. Hackett, if you don't know, was lead guitarist for Genesis from 1971 to 77. That's what he's most famous for, but he is a prolific solo artist and records all kinds of stuff, has revisited some of the Genesis stuff, does a lot of stuff on his own. He's kind of gone beyond, he has this ability to take prog rock kind of influences and sensibilities and blend it with a lot of other music genres like jazz or classical, or in the case of this album, very much some world music. And I think it's a really interesting. So this is very much an exploration of how you can combine prog, classical, gospel, Middle Eastern grooves. It's really interesting. It's kind of, I think, a continuation of this resurgence he's had, this creative resurgence across a bunch of recent albums like Wolflight and The Night Siren. So this album kind of highlights his atmospheric guitar work, very dynamic compositions and thoughtful lyrics, anchored by kind of almost a cinematic production and kind of, as I mentioned, very much like world-spanning textures of music. So personnel on it were Steve Hackett, guitars, vocals, and various instruments. Roger King, a longtime collaborator, keyboards, orchestration. Gary O'Toole on drums. Lorelei McBroom, who you may remember from Pink Floyd, doing backing vocals. You had an interesting instrument called a tar. It's an Azerbaijani string instrument. It was played by Mikolov Mansurov. And then you had Shima Mukherjee playing sitar. So again, there's some really interesting kind of world influences going on here. So At the Edge of Light is a very richly layered, stylistically expansive album that really embraces progressive rock, orchestral grandeur, and all of these world music, global kind of influences, ethnic sorts of themes in music, and it's kind of anchored around kind of the prog rock that he is most known for. Now, the standout tracks on this, I think, are These Golden Wings, which is a wonderful track. It's an instrumental suite. It concludes with an instrumental suite. It's really beautiful. It is wonderful. The album blends this progressive rock, again, orchestral, ethnic elements, and it addresses all sorts of themes. My standout track on it is Underground Railroad, which is really phenomenal. So what did I use next? Well, the next album I used, you may not be familiar with because it just came out on May 9th of 2025, and I just discovered it within the last 4 or 5 weeks. It's a group called I'm With Her, and the album is Wild and Clear and Blue. I'm With Her is an award-winning American folk supergroup. They were formed in 2014. They kind of got together at the Telluride Bluegrass Festival, and the trio met in a workshop, and they kind of then found the synergy amongst themselves. So you have Sarah Jarosz, she does vocals, mandolin, octave mandolin, acoustic and electric guitar, and banjo. You have Aoife O'Donovan, Aoife, I'll never be able to pronounce some of those Irish names, I can't do. Vocals, acoustic, baritone, electric guitar, and piano. And Sarah Watkins does vocals, fiddle, cello, and Hammond B3 organ. I love a B3. As I mentioned, they met at the Telluride Bluegrass Festival, and they came out with the first album in 2018 called See You Around. Now, this album, again, was released in May of 2025, and it is just really interesting. It is 11 tracks long, and it's very intimate folk and kind of bluegrass Americana. It is, their voice, their textures are amazing, just beautiful. There's lyrical threads that weave themes of kind of generational memory, some grief, personal transformation, very much highlighted in the title track, Wild and Clear and Blue. It's an homage to Nancy Griffith and John Prine, obviously, who we've lost Nancy Griffith a few years ago, John Prine just recently. Nancy Griffith, I think, Aoife Donovan, I'm again mispronouncing her name, has been compared to Nancy Griffith, and Nancy Griffith had an amazing voice. Oh my goodness, she was just a star. just her voice would melt me. And same on this. The vocals on this are just absolutely stellar. It's just wonderful. And again, it's stylistically richer and more adventurous than their debut album, which was See You Around from 2018. Very lush arrangements. It is a beautifully crafted album. It is extraordinarily well recorded. Their voices are so beautiful and so textured. And you guys know I have a soft spot and a thing and a predisposition to female artists. It is just marvelous how well it's recorded, how beautiful their voices are. Their harmonies are amazing. The instrumentation and orchestration and just everything is beautiful and lush and rich and textured. It's just and intimate at the same time. It is absolutely amazing album. I haven't stopped listening to it. It just really, I don't know how to describe it. If you love folk music, and I do, and I'm starting to like folk music probably more now than I ever did in the past. I've always been a big fan of Joni Mitchell, but Nancy Griffith was a big one back in the 80s and 90s for me. This is the same tone, just beautiful, rich, gorgeous vocals, gorgeous harmonies, wonderful lyrics, beautiful musicianship, just a marvelous album. Again, the group is called I'm With Her, and it's wild and clear and blue. Highly recommend it. So, what did I think of these amplifiers? So, the LAiV GaNM monoblocks, what a remarkable product. It is extraordinarily well built, as is all LAiV products. It is built, I think, as almost a cost, no object sort of design. Very thoughtful, very intelligently designed, very well engineered. From a sonic standpoint, I've got a bunch of other Class D amplifiers in-house right now. I've got the Argent Pure Class D monoblocks. I've got the Orchard Audio, the 150, the 25 monoblocks, the lower powered ones with the new modules in it. I've got the Pearl Acoustics, you'll see it sitting back there, Pearl Acoustic 7040, which is a Purify Class D module, not a GaN FET. They all have their own unique characteristics. So, and I'm not going to do a side-by-side comparison because they all stand or fall on their own, and they all stand or fall on how you pair them up and what equipment and what speaker. So each has its own individual characteristic. There's no better, there's no worse, there's no winners. From a build quality standpoint, this and the Pearl Acoustics are built at an exceptional level, but you're paying for it too, so that's part of it. From a sound standpoint, I found probably the most satisfying combination for me overall was the Black Ice F360 and the Audible Illusions Modulus M3B preamp. Those had warmth and a texture to them that I think brought these in line with more of what my sonic preference is, which is kind of warm and smooth. They're very detailed. These will not, I don't care what you put on the front end, if you give it a bad signal, you're going to hear a bad signal. They are very revealing in that regard. But if you give it too much of a good thing, and I think the HP2A was a little too much of a good thing, it's a little bit hyper detailed, at least in my estimation. I would tend to want to pair these with speakers that have a slightly softer top end, a much more friendly top end, potentially a soft dome tweeter, something along those lines. So for instance, the Opera Calais was a good combination with these, but that has a little bit of a European voicing, which means it's a little bit brighter on the top end. Not Focal, not B&W, not Kef, strident, bright, pull your eardrums out bright, but a little bit more energy on the top end, because again, I think more often than not, the Opera loudspeakers are paired with the Unison tube units, and that tends to be a great balance. And I heard that with the S6, the Black Edition S6, and the Calais when I had them here. With something like the Triangle Magellan Duetto 40ths with that magnesium horn-loaded tweeter, that would be just, my ears would be bleeding. I think it would just be too bright. Now, put a tube front end on these, the F360, the Audible Illusions, and it smooths them right out. And with a good speaker with a very nice, smooth top end, like the Crichtons, like the Wharfdales, like the Martin Logans, man, they're beautiful. The image is wonderful. They're dual mono. There's no crosstalk, all of that. They will give your speaker whatever signal it needs to absolutely perform at its very best. given its price range and everything else. These do punch above their weight, though, I believe, as far as sound quality goes. They're just absolutely magnificent. They sounded wonderful, had plenty of power for bass. They didn't care what impedance the speakers were. Almost all the speakers I have in right now are 4 ohm impedance, and they drove them without any problem whatsoever, and they were dynamic and punchy and great transients. I just felt like the amplifiers got out of the way of the music, and it was produced as however it was recorded, when it was laid down as a recording, is what you got back in playback. And again, you got to have a good front end. You need to have, in my estimation, a good, really high quality tube front end. The Rogue RP5 was a great combination. I tended to like the Black Ice F360 and the Audible Illusions, just incrementally better. Solid state preamp, I didn't care for. I borrowed a shit Kara from a friend of mine, and that sounded clean, super clean. If you like detail, it's a great combination. The HP2A headphone amp preamp is a great combination if you're a detail fan. But it was just a little too much for me. Tube front end on these, and I think a tube front end on most Class D amplifiers, in my estimation, is really the best combination for my particular taste. So I can't give these things high enough marks. They are just ballsy and powerful and punchy and just never missed a beat, never complained, never did anything, never even got warm. I mean, you could drive these things at high volume levels into the toughest loads all day long, didn't break a sweat, not even a little bit. They're beautifully built, they're magnificent, they're just really a wonderful amplifier. So anyway, that's my final thoughts on the LAiV GaNM amplifiers. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you'd be willing to give me a like and your subscription. I would appreciate that a great deal. I'd like to thank my channel members, my subscribers and viewers. Thank you guys for all the support you've given me. There will be a link to the LAiV audio website and to the Vinshine audio website. I don't have any affiliation with them, but if you want more information on the product, if you want more information on purchasing it, I'd suggest reaching out to Vinshine. They're the global distributor for LAiV, and Alvin may be able to help you navigate shipping and all of the other stuff for delivery of that product, no matter where you are in the world. So there'll be links there. There will also be a membership link in the pinned comment and in the video description if you are so inclined to join the channel. There are other affiliate links in the video description. You know the drill on that. There's also going to be a Tidal and Co-Buzz link to the 2 albums I used, as well as a link to the Community Post playlist. Please check that out. There's a lot of good music there. Comment. Let me know what you think. And I know I'm going to get the question, well, what about the SMSL PAX or the SMSL this or something that GaN-fed amplifier that costs $700? I'm sorry, you can't mention that kind of product in the same breath with a product like this. It's the end of it. That's my feelings. I know there'll be someone out there that takes me to task for that and tells me what a fool I am and that you don't need to spend any money to get really great sound and, bullshit. Anyway, that's that. Comment. Let me know your thoughts. I think that's everything I need to say. Please like, please subscribe, please comment, please follow me on Instagram if you are so inclined. My name is Ed Homewood. This is the Old Guy Hi-Fi channel. And as I always tell you, it is now time for you, or at some point during the day, you got to sit back, relax, put on some really beautiful music and just enjoy your time with it. Just let the music kind of soothe your soul, as it were. Anyway, you gave me a lot of your time. I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. I hope you have a wonderful day.